Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our live class number 2. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff that will hopefully help you through your Technovation growth journey. The first thing we have up for you guys is our very, very special guest, Salma. Are you around? Hi, Salma. All right, so Salma is our great, great friend from Shopify. She's going to go over some user testing, some user experience with you guys. She's an expert in her field. We're really excited to have her on. And I can't give a bigger intro than that. So, Salma, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Yeah, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. So hi, everyone. I'm Salma. I'm a product designer based in Montreal. Originally, I'm from Morocco, Casablanca, and I basically moved to Canada for university. So I did the bachelor in industrial design, and then I switched to interaction design, and now I'm a UX UI designer. So I don't know if any of you is interested in product design in general to become a product designer. If so, please feel free to ask any questions you have. So for this session, the main focus is going to be around user testing. So some of you probably have done some, maybe others have never done user testing, and that's okay. So I'll basically tell you a little bit of the basic of user testing, why we do that, and how helpful that can be in our product. Like when we design a product, or even when you guys are working on the business plan and you want to shape your idea, the user testing part is a really important step because it's going to help you identify your problem. You can uncover new opportunities, and the end goal is that you're going to adapt your product to your users so that they can have the best experience when they have this product on hand. So if we move to the next slide, um, I summarized it to 3 methods that I think you guys can use for your project. And the first one is the card sorting. I don't know if any of you have already used that before, but this technique is really helpful at the beginning of the process, and it helps you define the information architecture. So let's say you have, for example, you want to build an app that will, I don't know, sell cars or clothes. If you want to do that and you want to do something very original and you don't want to follow basically every other e-commerce platform or any other website that sells clothing, one really good way to figure out some innovation parts, some new ideas, is to put every single item that you want in this website or this app in a post-it. And let's say, like, I want to have dresses, I want to have pants. I will put like all of these keywords, like literally any single item that you can think of that you want to showcase in your website. Um, or app, of course, and you put them in a post-it. So you're going to end up having like 50 or 60 post-its. And once you have all of these, you put them on a table, and then you can have it even as a gathering with some friends. But if it's with friends, one note is that they have to be very objective and um, not try to please you. So you can have, yeah, a few people, let's say like 5 to 6, and then you can ask each one of them to group these post-its together. And what this will do is that it will help you figure out some new grouping methods. You can like uncover a new category. So instead of putting all of the dresses and their clothing, women, you can have a category which is going to be like summer, or it's going to be like when I'm feeling happy, or you're going to have like very much a new idea of how you can store your information. And this is going to be like very, very helpful to understand what's the mental model of your users, like what they want to see when they go on an app to buy your product, like how they think, how they might use actually that website or app that you're going to come up with. So this is for the first method. If you have any question, I don't know if you guys want to leave it to the end, but I really don't mind if you want to jump in.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I have a quick one, Salma. So, like, when you say post it, you literally mean that you will have like 50 to 60 like stickers in front of you, and it's really physical. And do you
yeah.
think like that physicality like helps you sort these ideas out?
Yeah, I think it makes it also more interactive. So we work mainly on a computer all day. So sometimes just to take this step away from a screen and have it like more physical and more material, it makes it more engaging, and it can also help with, like being more creative. And the idea is also not to have limits. I have actually a recommendation is to have, the other folder where you always put all of the items that don't fit anywhere. So it's important to have that one so that people don't bias the categories that they created. But yeah, I really mean a physical, like an activity, and making this, very interactive and very fun between people. Okay, so if no one else has another question, we can move to the second testing method that I recommend. So this one, I would say, would be after the card sorting. So you have an information architecture, you kind of know your flow, and you have a prototype. So at any step, like if you have wireframe, so like it could be hand drawn, it could be made on a design software. At literally any step, the minute that you know the screens and the flow that you want to have, you know that I want this step, and then I want the user to click here, and I want him to go on this screen. The minute that you have this flow, and it could be a succession of 5 screens, or you can have like 20. It's really important to test this with any user. The only recommendation is to avoid friends and close family. During these steps, we don't want people to tell us, oh, I did great work and my flow is final. The most valuable feedback you will get is when someone is going to talk about your prototype and be like, oh, I didn't imagine this way. I was expecting to do, I don't know, to land on this page. And instead, I got this and it was confusing. And when you get this feedback, I think on our side, like as UX designer, this is the best feedback we can get, because we see it as a scenario that we did not think about before. And we really see like any what is called like more negative feedback. It's not that you didn't do good work. It's just that you have this user that is showing you a new way of using your product, and this is very valuable to take note on. There's also one other aspect is when you do a guerrilla testing, you have to prepare, for example, a bunch of tasks. So I can tell Nick that, hey, I want you to sign in on this website, on my website, and I want you to add 3 products to your cart. And then when he's doing that, the goal is that I won't give him any guidance. Like if he asks questions, I'm going to try to help, but by giving the minimum information I can so that I can see what he can do on his own. Like, and really, you need to reassure your testers that there is no wrong way of doing things. Like any way they use your app or product is a good way. And for you, it's always going to be like a key information that you can use to perfect your product like over and over again. And that way, when you're going to end up launching your app or launching your website, it's going to be like, oh damn, like you got a super great flow. And even that one, so I work at Shopify, and of course we do so many testings. And even when we ship, we have a version 2, 3. Like we keep testing with users and we keep improving. So I think when you're in tech, there is never a final product. It's always like a work in progress and making it the best you can. But the earlier you can get it in front of users, and that can be any person, as long as it's the key users you want. So if I'm targeting users from 18 years old to 25, then I should get someone in that range. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if it's family or not family, as long as they try to stay as objective as they can. And then the last one, I think this one is a little bit more advanced, but I still wanted to share it. That's something I actually did 2 weeks ago at my job. But when you have, so let's say you launch a product and you're about to ship, and you're hesitating between two screens where you change like a detail, but this detail is going to give you a really key outcome. So what we do is that we basically make two designs, two flows, and we push for these two designs. And then we have what we call like, we have like group of people that we test it with. So I'm going to have like 10 people from my group A and 10 people from my group B, and both of them will have the same screen but two different designs. And what I'll do is that I'm going to analyze which one works better. And when I get the results, this method is really helpful to get data and to have like more quantitative results. So when I get these, I can analyze and see like, okay, so group A performed, I don't know, 10% better. So this is the version that we're going to ship for all of our users. Um, I actually see a question for guerrilla testing. So the question that you ask your users, it really depends on the task that you want them to achieve. So if I take again the example where I ask Nick to sign in, I will give him just the main task to do. So I'll be like, okay, your let's say he wants to sign in to my shop store, and he wants to add I don't know, sweaters to his cart. So I'll give this task to Nick, and then I will watch him achieve that task. And if, let's say, he's blocked and he's like, oh, I don't know what to do to go to the next screen, I will ask him to describe, for example, the screen to me and be like, okay, you see, what do you see on your screen? Three buttons. Which one do you feel like will lead you to the cart? If he's really stuck, but like if we tried 3 4 questions and he's really stuck, you can unblock him and give him like the answer. And if I tell him, okay, you should click on the CTA that is green, and this one will lead you to the next stream. And if I give him the answer, it's really important to ask why he was blocked and why he couldn't figure it out, so that I can improve after that and make it easier for him the next time to do that sign in by himself.
I had a quick question about the back to the gorilla testing, Selma. So when you say you shouldn't, your users shouldn't be biased, right? Like
Mhm.
my mom's really supportive. If I ever get her to test my thing, she's always gonna be like, "Oh, I think this thing is great, no matter how bad it is." Uh, likewise, you shouldn't be really biased when you ask your users questions, right? So like you were saying earlier, the the user might be a little like could come to something that makes them a little stuck. The question shouldn't be like, "Hey, do you know is this really great feature I put in there?" It should be more like, "Is there anything you notice that sticks out to you?" Something like that, right?
Exactly. And I think the mindset that we want during a testing is not approval for our design, but it's more about uncovering new opportunities. So it's really seeing it as a way that, okay, I'm doing this testing and I'm excited to see what I might have missed and how I can improve my product. So that way, I think parents are great to give us like emotional support, and we really need that when we're designing a product. But if we're doing a testing and we want to improve that and have the best version possible, then we really want someone objective. The other scenario that I can see also is if you want to test your product, let's say with a friend, and you want to have this objective part, but you want to put them a bit in the mood and explain to them the context. One other method is to create a persona. So you can create a persona, you can call it Emily. She's 17 years old, and she is studying in this school. So you give like a lot of details. And when you go to your tester, you present to them this persona and you ask them to be that person. So you're like, okay, imagine you're this person, and she's X years old and she works here or she studies here. So that way they can detach from their own person and be more in the, in a user mode where they're going to be maybe more inclined to give you an objective feedback. How can we find users to get valuable feedback? That's a really good question. I think, of course, it depends on their resources. So, if you go to a big company, they hire, for example, people that will find testers. And the way to do it is that they're going to say, okay, if you test our product, we can literally pay you for that. I did that like only at my latest company, but I did so many user testing before with no resources. And it ended up being, for example, once I was at a startup and we were doing an app for a borrowing system, a reusable for reusable cups. And what we did is that we went to the coffee shop, and when we were there, we asked people, and we were like, okay, hey, it's gonna take literally like 3 minutes to five, and we just want you to try our app, and we want to see how it works. And we ended up getting like 15 people that accepted, probably a lot, like I think like 25 to 30 that said no, but we got like a good amount of people that just wanted, like to give us feedback and help us improve the product. So that's one way to go, for example, to it could be like at the library if you want. Like you can ask people, especially if it's students, usually they're more inclined into maybe helping. It could be your family, but like not close one. And yeah, like just explaining to them the context, always putting the emphasis that there is no wrong answer. Like at any user testing that I do, I always start with you never have a wrong answer, because you want to take away that stress either of pleasing you and using the product correctly, or you also want them to give, like to tell you exactly what they think. Figuring out the users, I think it's probably one of the first steps you want to do. The more you go broad, the harder it is to have a very specific project. So what you want to do is understand your users basically. But if I want to understand someone from 5-year old to 45-year old, I have like so many differences that I'm going to end up doing a product that might answer no one's need, and that won't be ideal. So I I would highly recommend when you're designing, um, before even having like the product or the prototype or any of it, you should define like a user that would enjoy your product and would use the product the most. So try to find an age range that would have like that would benefit the most from it. And what we do is that you start with the user range, and then after you can expand it to a lot more, so you can adapt it for example to 45 to 65, and then you can also adapt it to younger people. But start, or if you start with the younger people, so from 5 to 10, then like you can make other versions later to improve that. But try to have a very focused target, and what you need to do is understand these users before even starting to design your product.
So, what has been your best experience when it comes to testing a user? And I have a second question. Are these like the three main ways of testing, or are there more?
Yeah. So the best experience when I was testing, um, I had a few of them. I don't know which one is best, but I had a testing session that really changed the whole path of our product. And it was, thank God, it was at the beginning, but it was my best experience that it changed, because when you work in a company, you have to deal with a lot of stakeholders and people within the company. And the best way, so if I say that I think idea A is great, I need to prove it, and I need to have like a solid backup. That's why I think this idea A is great. And sometimes if I'm a stakeholder and I'm the CEO of the company, I've never been that, but like for the CEO that exists, like they can come and tell me, okay, I want this exact idea, but I know that it's not going to be beneficial for users. And when that happens, I try it with users, and then we see the outcome. And when we get like the user telling us that they don't understand the product, or they don't like the way it is right now, not because it's personal, but because it's too hard to achieve, then this is like the best outcome for you to prove that this idea is not great and you have to go back to research. So for me, that was a really good um, session that helped us go back to our stakeholders, which was like the CEO, the CTO, and tell them, okay, we tried what you say and it's not working. We tested it with users, and we should go back to the research and rethink of our problem. And we did that, and we ended up having a more successful product at the end. And that was like a lot of cost for the company. So, and then that second question, oh yeah, there are other methods. And then like for each, you can break them. So if I take the A/B testing, you can have like a remote versus in person. If I take guerrilla testing, it can lead to usability testing. And for some scenarios, for example, you have what we call an observer, and then we have a person that asks, so person A who's going to ask the questions, and then we have the tester who would use the product. So for this method, for example, the observer is outside in a screening room, and they have a screen between, so the tester doesn't see the observer, and what he does is that he basically focuses on the reactions of how the tester is using the product. So let's say if he see him smiling, he's going to take notes of that. And that we have like, it's a very evolved method, so very few companies go that deep. It's usually user research companies, but you can push any of these methods to a more complete testing session.
My question was, is there any scenario where like testing with a user who isn't in the target market that you're looking for? Like, is there any scenario where testing with those type of users can be helpful?
Yeah, it does. It can be helpful. It wouldn't be to test the idea of a product. So if I'm doing a product for kids and I'm testing it with adults, I wouldn't rely on that to validate my um, business idea, let's say. But I can still do that for visuals, for example, and readability. So if I have a screen, I could test it with any person and see how they feel about the screen, how they feel about the flow. But I wouldn't rely on them mainly. I would really try to find the users within my target.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Salma. That was really helpful. I'm going to start taking over now. So, what I'd like to talk about today is the business plan. So, the business plan, as some of you might know, if you started your submission already, for senior teams, there is a party submission that is called the business plan. And if you're not in the senior division, don't worry about it. This is still helpful for you. But the business plan is a really comprehensive document that should go over your company, right? Your product, your business. So we'll be going over that today. It's got quite a few parts, so we're going each part individually. And there's a lot to talk about. So again, if at any time I'm going on and you have a question, go ahead and pop in the chat. I'll try my best to answer it. All right, so first things first, again, the business plan, right? This is your big idea. Your business plan, like I said, is comprehensive. But what does comprehensive mean? Comprehensive means, in this case, that you should cover quite a few goals with your business plan. When I look at a team's business plan, what I want to see are your goals, your ideas, your strategies on how to be successful, right? Imagine if I was someone looking to invest into your submission, your product. What would convince me to invest? Well, by being confident in your idea. Your business plan should give me confidence. For you as the creator of this project, it should give you a sense of confidence as well, right? You should be able to look at it and be like, yes, this is my idea. This is my roadmap to success. But like I said, though it's only required by the senior division, if you are not in the senior division yet, we're going to go over some concepts that, while you don't have to write down, will be really useful for you to be thinking about. So the business plan takes a lot of forms, right? But the one we're specifically asking you from Technovation girls should include these 6-7 parts. We're aiming for 5 to 10 pages because, like I said, even though if I was an investor, I am looking for confidence. I only have so much time. I can't read more than 10 pages. Let's keep it at that limit for now. So when we talk about the executive summary, it's kind of in the name, right? It's the summary. This is the big ideas of your big ideas. If I can only read one section and try to understand what you're doing, this is the section I'm looking at. And because it covers so many ideas, it might actually, even though I'm presenting this first, right? It might be easier to go over the other sections and write down the other sections before writing your executive summary, because whenever we're coming up with ideas, whenever we're making apps, making AI projects, a lot of stuff is going on in our head, right? And to get that all down into writing, to have your thoughts to be concise and neat and clear and focused, it takes a lot of work. So after executive summary, it's usually followed by a section called company description. So this is a little more detail. It's a little more, so it's your chance to elaborate a little more. It's the section where you kind of explain what your goals are, why you're doing it, and why you're here. Like, why are you the person specifically ready, the right person to do the goal that you're stating? So a helpful thing to include in this section is a mission statement, right? Some of you guys may have seen this before when you look at company websites. If you go to Technovation's website, we have a mission statement too, right? A mission statement is a single statement that succinctly says what you're about and what you're trying to do. And if any of you are so brave, I'd love to hear your at least an attempt at a mission statement for what you guys are solving. And it doesn't, if you don't have it fully formed yet, I'm happy to hear, like I said, attempts, right? Like, you don't have to have a final version yet, but yeah, this is an interactive thing. So if you'd like to speak, feel free to speak. And as you guys are thinking about your mission statements, we're going to just keep rolling along here. Next section, including your business plan. Sorry, little frog in my throat there. All right, next section, your business plan. It's the products and services. So the products and services section of your business plan, this should go over specifically what it is you're selling, what you're providing, right? This is more about your product. Products are a little more encompassing. I know a lot of you are probably making apps, but remember, we also have the other option of submitting AI projects. Basically, you're trying to tell me what it is, the thing you created. What does it do? What does it provide me as a potential user? I want to hear the main features, the main points, the highlights of what it is that you've created. I also want to hear about your development process, right? I want to hear, kind of like what Sam was saying earlier, like if you got user feedback and you improved, how did you do that? Like, what stage of the product, what stage is your product at, right? Are there improvements coming in the future? Because that's also really important. I'm sure a lot of you obviously have like apps downloaded onto your phone. You're constantly updating, right? They're constantly, whenever I try to reach for the app I want to use that day, I get an update notification. Give me a second first. There's a new version out there, because these companies have done that user research. They know that, hey, this is not the final version of our product, just like what someone was saying. So we need to keep improving it, right? This section could benefit a lot from visual aid.
Yeah, started scroll down to see if you have put the scroll.
Sorry, Rhoda, could you repeat that?
A, D, F, G, H, I, J.
What are you looking for? Which person are you looking for?
Let's see. Maybe let's search either this. Now here, Matilda. Maybe Matilda.
All right, Rhoda, sorry. If you can also type your question in the chat. Maybe it's my connection. It's a little hard to hear you, but if you type your question into the chat, I'll be sure to see it and I'll try my best to answer it. Yeah, when you see half a page here, And now that I said it out loud, hopefully it's it's more obvious. When I mean half a page, I mean half a page. So like I said earlier, the business plan when you submit to Technovation Girls should be somewhere around 5 to 10 pages. And we don't really want to go over 10 pages. So while this section is only half a page, try to do your best to fit everything in here, right? I know sometimes these page limits might seem a little limiting, but I think there's value in being focused and concise. Something quite a few people say is that if you can't simply explain what you do, then maybe you need to take some time to go back to the drawing board. Not necessarily that your project is simple, but what you're trying to aim for is, again, a focused, clear idea.
It still doesn't make any sense.
What's really the meeting again?
Okay. All right. If there's any more questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next section. Okay. This next section.
No
is called... Yeah, Daniela, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, thank you, Daniela. All right. This next section is called the market analysis session, right? This is one of the sections that you're going to fit a lot of that user testing, user understanding your user's idea into. Okay. So your market analysis session, this is this part where you're proving to me as the reader that you understand your target market, right? So kind of like the questions we had earlier, it's understanding who your users are and you're understanding what they want, understanding what it is that they're looking for. Because for a lot of you, you're trying to solve a problem in your community, right? Well, I want to hear that your community wants your solution. And another thing beyond that is also understanding what the quote unquote market out there looks like for your solution. So it's probably not a great idea for me to create an app that plays music because we have a lot of like music playing apps out there, right? I understand that, like, for example, Spotify's out there. When you have, there's undoubtedly a lot of competitors out there to what you're doing. So what I want to hear is that you know who your competitors are. And also, how is it that you stand out from your competitors? Because why would I download your app or use your solution versus something that's already out there and that's already established? So yeah, summarize, this is your users, who they are, what they want, your competitors, who they are, and how you stand out. Alrighty, next section here. It's the strategy and implementation. A little longer of a name, but really it boils down to what is your strategy, right? We've talked about your users. We've talked about you understanding that. We talked about your product. Now, what is your strategy to get your product out there? This is your marketing. This is your branding. This is how, like, are you going to put it up on an app store? Are you going to partner up with some business to spread the word of your product? Things like that, right? I want to see how you plan to spread your solution to the masses. The user feedback we talked about earlier, again, fits really well into here. Because if you understand your users, you should understand how to reach them, right? If I make an AI solution that tells me when's the best weather, when's the best season to go fishing, I'm probably not gonna, like look for someone who works in a big office because yes, maybe they're interested in fishing, but that's not where my target audience is, right? I'm probably gonna go to coastal areas, people already on the pier, people already on fishing boats and say, hey, this is my solution. I like to spread it out to you, your friends, and everyone you know in your community because I designed this for you. All right, Elena has a question here. How many competitors should we track or mention? Should we focus on a specific bunch or our biggest competition? I would say, so let me double back here to that part. We mentioned earlier that there's some suggested page limits for each of these sections. And I said there's value in being concise, right? I don't need an endless list of your competitors because I'm sure there's a lot out there. But I would like to see how your solution stacks up against some of the biggest names out there. I would say that would probably get your point across a lot better. Because even if you find, let's say, Joey down the street who's doing almost exactly what you're doing, and you're gonna compete with Joey. Me as a person, just a random person out there in the world, I don't know who Joey is, but I know who Apple is. I know who Google is, right? Those biggest competitors, you don't necessarily need to be better than Google. Let's get that point across, right? I don't expect that. But you want to draw easy comparisons for the person reading your business plan so that no matter who they are, they understand what the point you're trying to get across is. Hopefully that helps. And yeah, that's also a really great point. Focus, right? If your solution is focused down, you can really pick and choose who you consider your competitors to be, because you are doing something unique and special, hopefully, right? You are making a specific solution for your specific community. That's the end goal here. Okay. So we talked about strategy implementation. The next section here, financial planning projection. Again, kind of in the title, specifically, we're talking finance, right? The money part of your business. So even though you're probably in early stages, you still got to think a bit about budgeting. The world kind of runs on this. You can't, as good of a solution that you're trying to put out there in the world, and good in the sense as in like morally good, right? You're still going to need a little bit of a cash flow to make your things happen. So even as a nonprofit, even like us as Technovation, we need funding to operate. So how are you going to secure some funding? How are you going to make sure that you have funding in the future to make sure that you have the opportunity to keep working on what you're working on? This section could get a little complicated, but again, we're going to have links to the right curriculum lessons. We're going to have worksheets. We're going to have things that will walk you through how to financially project your company, your business. We won't go over all the formulas today, but the point I want you to walk away with here is that finance is something worth thinking about when coming up with your solution. Finally, the last section here, we're just going to call this etc. There's some page recommendations above, like I said, but if you really feel like there's something else that we didn't go over, something that you really want to include into your business plan, this is your chance to do it, right? A lot of business plan I've seen coming from Technovation Girls includes a small section of like who you are, what's your background, what's everyone in your team's like specialized role, things like that, because it can be important for your reader to understand these things. Because remember, again, the person reading your business plan, it's not only like a generic like potential investor, but there are also like, for example, Technovation judges, right? Technovation judges love to see who you are, what you're about, what's your community like. Again, there's value in being concise and value in being focused. So pick and choose wisely. Even though the upper page limit is 10, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to write 10 pages, but I do want to see pages of value. Yeah. Let me see, there's a couple of questions that popped up as I was saying that. If we have plans for marketing that can't be executed at the moment, can we still add them to our project? Yeah. So again, there's some worksheets, there's some lessons we have that will specifically go over what we want to see in these sections. You don't need to have the most foolproof idea. I think the bottom line is, while there are some guidelines, like I want to at least see you put some honest effort into thinking about these aspects. Do we need to pay before operating our app? Hopefully, no. We really stress that Technovation Growth is a free program. I don't want you paying for tools that you might not necessarily need. When I talk about like financing and when I talk about financing your potential company, right? Again, I just want to see that you've put some thought into it. It's one thing to say that, yeah, it takes me 10, 20 hours to code my app. But that's 10, 20 hours that's you're going to need someone to kind of finance you through, right? Like you can't just go every day doing good in the world saying like, yes, I'm helping my community. Like you need someone to make sure that you have some kind of income to make sure that you can keep going, right? And it's not just you. If like, imagine a scenario if you become a great old company and you're hiring employees. You're hiring employees, right? Hiring means you're paying your employees. That needs to happen. So again, ideas. And no, I don't want you to see, I don't want to see you paying for anything yet. How do people get apps on their Play Store? That is a longer process. I think we have some resources out there. It's not super simple yet because there is some there's the validation process, but I think some of my other Technovation friends here might be able to send you some resources later because I think we have something. It's a little bit long for me to go over at this moment. All right, wait, this is the last question I'm going to answer for now. Again, we have a Q&A session at the end, so hold on to your questions. Will financial problems be solved by Technovation Girls? No, I wish. Again, these are, when I talk about finance, I want you to just be thinking about potential ways to finance your operation. Not necessarily that Technovation Girls can solve all the financing problems around the world, right? Think about how you might appeal to a potential investor. Think about if you did appeal to a potential investor and they are on board with your idea, how you're going to allocate those funds, right? Okay. So like I said, we'll come back to the questions at the end if you still have them, because we still have a little bit more to go, but take a breather. I know that was a lot. And again, the business plan is a comprehensive document. You're going to need a lot of parts to make sure that it comes together. But don't worry about it. As like you kind of naturally think about these parts as you're working on your project. It's just more about getting them into writing. And there, of course, there are some specific stuff that you will need to look at to make sure that it works. But again, we have a bunch of resources. We have some great curriculum lessons. We have some great worksheets. There's even like a really nice checklist to make sure that you've included all these things in the proper part of your business plan. All this stuff will be sent to you after this session. So keep an eye out for, again, our communications, our links. It'll all be there. Okay. I like to switch gears for a bit. If you were here at our last session, we talked a bit about ChatGPT and how you can utilize that as a tool. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today too, in regards to your business plan. So for those of you who don't know, ChatGPT, this is awesome AI tool that came out recently. It's simplest way to put it, a really, really comprehensive chatbot. You can have great conversations with it. It can write you and create a lot of content. But it is a tool that we should approach carefully. So let's expand on that idea. Okay, and I just said this. But I do really want to stress it, right? It is a tool that we should approach very carefully. So how do we do that? All right, here's a quick bullet point list of do's and don'ts when using ChatGPT in regards to your business plan. Don't worry if you don't understand everything yet. This is just a little preview. We're going to go over some examples, and hopefully this list will make more sense afterwards. I think the bottom line is, and thank you, Emily, there's the link to ChatGPT in the chat, in our chat box. I think the bottom line is that what I want you to take away is that when you use ChatGPT, It's going to be really tempting to say, hey, ChatGPT, can you write my business plan? And it will give you something that looks really nice. But that's only on the surface. It's not going to be as accurate as you think it might be. ChatGPT is a really great tool for you to bounce ideas off of, for you to, again, narrow down and focus your thoughts. It's a really great tool for everyone to be aware of so that the playing field is like even, right? Like there's a lot of busy work involved into making a business plan. And as a tool, as an AI tool, ChatGPT can do a lot into reinforcing ideas, making them potentially a step better than where you originally started. Anyway, there's a lot of talking. Let's dive into an example. So what I did earlier is I talked to ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT a few prompts. I'll show you the prompts after this. But this is what ChatGPT gave to me when I asked it to write an executive summary for me, right? This is my app. So let me read out loud for everyone. Cerebrate is a comprehensive brain training app that improves focus, attention, and memory through personalized experience and games. With a user-friendly interface and real-time progress tracking, it's easy to enhance cognitive abilities and reach achievable goals. Ideal for work, school, and daily mental sharpness, Cerebrate is the ultimate brain training solution. Wow, this sounds great. If I include this in my business plan, I might be really happy. And again, here's the prompt I used, right? There's one little problem. This is actually not what Cerebrate is about. So this is some really nice sounding words. But if all I asked ChatGPT was to write me an executive summary of the app named Cerebrate, it's only going to guess at what Cerebrate is actually about. So if some of you who are returning for the second year or third year, the name Cerebrate might sound a little familiar. This is actually an app from one of our finalists from last season. And Cerebrate doesn't do what the summary says. Cerebrate is specifically a solution to help people who suffer from stroke to have a better recovery process. And nowhere in this generated summary does it mention stroke recovery, right? Nowhere in my actual plans does Cerebrate specifically talk about attention and sharpening I mean, it kind of talks about like improving cognitive abilities, but I'm thinking specifically in the context of helping people recover from stroke, right? So you see, even though this has been really nice, that's not what my app is actually about. Let's give it another shot. Here's one, a little more meaty, and it sounds a little nicer. Quickly going through it. Cerebrate is a cutting-edge app designed to support and aid in the recovery process of stroke survivors. Nice. The app is user-friendly and accessible, providing patients with personalized rehabilitation exercises, progress tracking, and educational resources to support their journey to a full recovery. And I'm not going to read the second part because we've come into another problem. Cerebrate didn't actually do any of these things, right? Here's my prompt, and it's a little more thorough than the last prompt we gave. But again, my app doesn't actually do this, right? There's issues with just directly asking ChatGPT to do these large tasks for you. And this isn't the way that I think people should be using these AI tools. So how can we use it? We did have that checklist earlier, but let's see the example first. So you haven't had the chance to say hi to her yet, but my friend from Technovation, Karen, she is here. And Karen, I'd like your help with this. So instead of asking ChatGPT directly, hey, can you write my business plan? Can you write my marketing session? Whatever, right? I want you to give ChatGPT, if you decide to use it, I want you to give it context. I want you to help it understand who you are, what you're about, what your solution is about. And I want you to, when you're using it, to ask very specific questions that will actually help you think about your solution more as opposed to getting a direct answer. So here's the conversation I had with ChatGPT. Blue is the perspective of me, the person creating it. Pink, red is again the what ChatGPT said back to me. So Karen, if you can pretend to be ChatGPT, let's see how this conversation goes. All right, so we're a team of girls who created an app called Celebrate. This app is designed to make the recovery process of those who have a stroke easier. Okay, context. If you were an interested survivor, ChatGPT, what would you like to know about our app? And could you ask one question at a time? Because if you don't limit it, it's going to go on and on.
Okay, as an interested investor, I would like to know the following information about your app, Celebrate. What specific problem is your app solving in the stroke recovery process, and how does it address the issue better than existing solutions?
See, exactly right there. You hit the nail on the head, right? I didn't tell ChatGPT like the Technovation Girls business plan process, but it is asking me, what is it I do? Who are my competitors? Why do I stand out? And my reply is, Celebrate aims to make it easier by providing a more direct contact line between patient and caregivers and doctors.
Great, thank you for the answer. Next question. Who is your target market and how large is the market opportunity? Have you conducted market research to validate the need for your app?
And to which I replied, before I answer that, do you think my previous answer had enough details? And this is really important, right? Because while ChatGPT did ask me a great question, don't take what ChatGPT says as truth. Like it sounds really nice again, and it sounds great, but always be questioning, and think critically about what this AI tool sends back to you. It's important for me to, like, I literally question it, right? Like, did I actually answer your question? And it replied.
Your previous answer provides a general idea of what your app does, but it would be helpful to have more specific information about the problem you're solving and how your app addresses it better than existing solutions. Additionally, ...
And I typed a whole lot more. Again, claps in the chat for Karen. Thank you for that. Very great rendition of ChatGPT there. You may have noticed it is correct. I gave an answer. I purposely didn't give like a full answer, and it was able to pick out what I was lacking. So this tool was really helpful in making sure my answers are full and comprehensive, like we keep saying. It's not really helpful in giving me the direct answer because I'm the one who understands my project the best, right? The answers are within me. ChatGPT is a great way to help me bring those answers out from within me. It's not great at providing those answers directly. So now that you've kind of seen some examples in action, let's look again at the do and don't list. Hopefully it makes a little more sense now, right? A lot of things, hopefully you saw in the examples, right? Providing context, asking, questioning ChatGPT. And hopefully in a good example, you saw that, again, we didn't trust immediately what ChatGPT said, and we asked that it double checked exactly what it is we're talking about. One point I specifically want to point out here in the bottom of the do section is that when you use these kinds of AI tools, it is pretty important to acknowledge that you used it, right? It is a powerful tool. It does a lot. And in the interest of like honesty and integrity, you should mention that you used it in the process. This year, as you go through the submission process, like on the Technovation Girls platform, there will be a question. Did you use AI tools such as ChatGPT? It doesn't affect your score whatsoever. But again, it's important to say that if you did use it, tell us you used it. And we're also really curious to know. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was interesting. There's a lot of content to go through. So we're rushing to the end here. Salma, since we have you here, any thoughts about ChatGPT? Have you had a chance to use it? Do you think it's good, powerful, dangerous, cheating?
Yeah, I actually used it a lot the past month, more exploring, not particularly for my work. I think it's extremely powerful, but it can also be very dangerous. I think it's a good start in it's a technology that needs to be controlled a bit. Otherwise, we don't want to have everyone, like coming up with the same answers, for example. And this chat GPT can lead to that in a way. But like if we see it also, it's a really good innovation that can be applied like in so many fields. And um, yeah, like I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a really great idea and it's really great execution also. I was using also like the open AI like prior to ChatGPT, and it's fascinating to see tech advancing so fast and reaching so many fields. I'm a bit afraid in terms of content when it comes to ChatGPT. Like, content design is a job itself. Like, we do have content designers in. Um, I think it's never going to replace a content designer, but in many people might take that road because it's faster and maybe might require less resources, but the result is never going to be as good as if you have a content designer, for example.
Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of times like, I've searched stuff into Google and a couple of hits are like, did a person really write this? This isn't very helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
All right, Nisha, I see your hand is raised. Did you have a question?
So this isn't really like specific to my app or anything. It's just kind of a general question. But when you have different like apps where personalization is like a huge factor, I was just like wondering how like UI or UX may change depending on that, and like how testing changes. Like I know for example, like Spotify, like one of its big things is that it's personalized to your music taste. So you'll get suggestions related to your music taste and stuff like that. So I was just kind of wondering how UI and UX would change and how it kind of affects that.
Yeah, that's a good question. If we take the example of Spotify, um, they're still going to do the same UI and UX steps. For example, they're still going to have their testing sessions, but it's not going to be to recommend pop music. It's going to be more focused on how do we know how users research their music right now. And probably what they landed on the first time, at least, was that people were looking, for new music, but like not a particular song. They were looking for the software itself to suggest ideas. So their process was not around, I think, recommending one particular type. It would be more around understanding like users and listeners um, want to hear their songs or what they want to discover. And I guess that would be the same as for podcasts. Like that's when they realized, oh, okay, like they're not looking into radio anymore, and sometimes they don't want to listen to songs. Then like out of that research, maybe the idea of podcast came up, etc. So this probably was actually a really good scenario where instead of going the path that we had, like listening to radio songs and kind of telling users what they should listen to, instead of that, Spotify, what they did is that they adapted to whatever the personal user wants to listen to. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, Selma. It kind of reminds me of something that bypass user testing, right? Like it was pretty famous a while back where I think Adele, right? She said,
Mhm.
hey, Spotify, you had the shuffle album buttons on,
Yeah,
and I think that's a really poor choice, right?
yeah.
And Spotify listened and like, okay, yeah, you're right. We're hearing that our users don't like this, so we need to change course.
Yeah, and for that same example, like Spotify, oop, Spotify is a B2B2C. So like they have two types of users. They have their clients, which are like for example, Adele and other singers, and then they have the people that listen to Spotify. So they have these two mindsets where they want singers basically to share their songs in their platform, and they want like users to listen to their clients that are singers. So they have to adapt to both of them. And as you said, like Adele was saying that they have a storytelling when they launch an album, so they want listeners to respect that storytelling. And Shopify was like, and Spotify was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna retire from this and take away the shuffle.
All right, Prisha, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, so my app, me and my group, we want to make our homepage a little interactive with like graphs and stuff, but we don't want to make it too overwhelming with numbers. So how would we like do that?
So you want to show graphs on the landing page, like the first thing you see?
Yeah, because we want to show like kind of like a little bit like of statistics.
I see. Okay, so your key point here is going to be information architecture. So you have to think that if you're doing an app and if it's for a phone, you have a small screen. So try to think of grouping your data together and what is the most valuable data that a merchant wants to see right away. So you're not going to show all of the numbers at once, otherwise for sure it's going to be overwhelming, but you can start with the most important piece of information, and then maybe when you click, you show more about that data so that you give an overview and you know your user's intent when they click on something, then that means that they want to know more. But if they don't want to know more, you just want to give them the most important information first. How to create a good logo for an app? that's a good question. That's neither UX or UI, but I can definitely answer you for that. It's more of graphic design. I think for this one, you need a brand identity first. So when you create your brand, branding doesn't mean logo. Like logo is a part of branding. When you define your brand, you want to have your values first. What do you want to vehiculate when you have that brand? And when you define these values, that's when you start the creation of the logo, and it's going to make it easier. If you have a logo that doesn't mean anything, I think that's going to be very hard in terms of long terms to push for that. Like at some point, you're either going to create it because it's a trend and the trend is going to fade away. But if you have a meaning behind that logo, then this is going to be a lot helpful for you in the long term. And of course, you're going to update it with time. But I would tell you to first define your brand values, the guidelines also. Like I think branding is a whole section on itself, but except the values, you also have the tone of voice. So what kind of language do you want your brand to speak? If I take an example of, I don't know, Vogue versus Nike, we have like two different languages, one that is more, sports and modern, and the other one that is more, upscale and very with the serif in the fonts. It's more, targeting rich people and this very elitist category. So for both of these, they have defined their values first. They have this defined like what they want out of the brand, and then the logo design comes after.
All right, Naisha, I see your question. A little more specific to the Technovation Girl project. That's fine. So the business plan, at least for in the case of Technovation Girls, right? The order I gave you guys is the most common order I see. Like you probably still want your executive summary to be in the front. That's pretty normal. But if you want to toss around the other sections, feel free. It's more like, again, I mentioned a checklist earlier, right? Like in Technovation Girls, we want to see you specifically mention a few things. Whatever order that is, that's up to you. As long as you think it makes sense, go for it. And as for examples, again, when we send out these slides and other resources towards the end of the session, there are actually quite a few examples from past seasons, and a lot of these past examples that we're going to be handing out have gone to at least semi-finalists, if not finalists entirely. So they are business plans that at least Technovation Girls really likes to see. Are there 3 divisions? Yes, a beginner, junior, senior division divided by your age. Again, only the senior division needs to submit a business plan, but I hope that if you're not in the senior division, you're thinking about all the concepts we talked about today. But on the topic of business plans, I guess I'm curious, if you have any thoughts of the business plan. Like I said, when I look at business plan, right, like if I am an interested investor, I want to be convinced that your idea is, well, something worth investing in. Is that something that you look for? Is there other parts that maybe we didn't mention today that you think might be helpful to include, or is there any specific thing that you think that should be given more time to like? I should think about this part a lot more than the others.
Yeah, I think that the outlines that you gave made pretty much sense. I think that's the most common that we see. Maybe one thing that can help also sell your idea is scalability. So if you have like your product and it can be scaled to, like bigger, you can see a future basically for that product. So that can also help investors see that, it's not only stopping once you launch and that's it. You can think about, okay, in the future I want to adapt this to have it like have this new feature or have this new technology that can be implemented. I think it also can be a good point like that you can make to have like more investors inclined to invest in your product.
So any like particular like app or website that you found like, wow, the user experience on this place is really great? There's plenty of examples I can think of that are like, I don't like being here, I don't like using this, but like there are some standouts in my mind that I'm like, yeah, this is designed pretty nicely.
That's a good question. I feel like I have like favorites depending on the theme, I'd say. I think I really like the Nike training app. I don't know if any of you guys have tried it, but it's really well done. Even like the UX, they have what is it called? The night training and night running app. So they have like challenges, and then you can get like achievements. So after X session, you get kind of a reward, which is a badge. So I think it's pretty well thought. Duolingo is quite famous. I'm not a big fan, but I'm not the right public for it. So I can recognize though that the UX is really good. The UI is not much of my taste, but the UX is really good. Um, Pinterest actually is a good app. It's so simple that like I think it's a pretty good one.
You're saying Duolingo has a good UX experience, even though that owl is always reminding you, hey, did you do your lesson?
Yeah, I think the way that you recognize a good UX is when people get hooked, and Duolingo did a really good job at that. Like I know a lot of people that want to get to the next phase, and I tried it myself. I just abandoned, and I was like, oh, I'm never gonna learn Italian. But it was like their flow makes it. People are enthusiastic and they want to keep using it. Like not only learn the language, but getting to the next steps. I think that proves that their UX is really good.
Yeah, just and don't just take our word for it. Download it, give it a shot, right? Try to find those features that make you think like, oh wow, this makes a lot of sense, right? It's not necessarily just this is great. Like things just make sense, and I think that's a really key thing to go for when designing your product, your app, your whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, Carol sent me this question. If you want to send it to the wider group, that's up to you, Carol, but I can say it here. She asked, can we submit our project online? Yes, the entire project submission process is online through the Technovation Girls platform. So make sure you have an account there. Make sure you're fully signed up. That includes like having your parents' consent that you are doing this project. So yeah, if you haven't already, make sure you have an account on Technovation Girls. Everything you need to submit, it will be done through there. Okay, we have a question about the user adoption plan. What should we do for the user adoption plan? What's the difference between it and the business plan? So like I said earlier, the business plan is strictly for senior teams. And I hope if you're not in the senior division yet, that you gain something valuable today. The user adoption plan is a shorter version of the business plan where it does ask you questions considering your users, right? So a lot of things that Selma talked about today will fit into that category. There you go. Thank you for that link. And the junior division, while we're not asking you about the full-on business plan, you may notice that we are asking you about users, right? Because users are just that important. So if you click on that link, you'll see the kinds of questions we're asking. Really just fill it out, give it some thought, refine it, go through a few drafts. That's really important. And after you leave today, if you lose that link, it is linked in the curriculum. There is a lesson especially called user adoption plan. So easy to find there. That was fun, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Sign up for the next class. It'll be just as fun and exciting as this one. Also going over some really important stuff. Sign up for it. And that's all for me. All right. Bye, everybody.